Sanchita Mukherjee. Sanchita, as someone who watches it very, very closely, I'm looking at the press release which has come in, and of course it talks about various slabs. But do you see this actually fitting into that space of next generation reforms? And what makes it next generation?
Yes, absolutely, Maria, and it's such a pleasure to be here. This is quite a momentous decision indeed. And the way we see it is that the states and the center has worked very, very effectively in this federal structure in terms of the GST rationalization, which was so required in today's date to bring about the next wave of consumption in India. If one were to look at, I just quote the SBI report, which was also released, the SBI economist report, which states that the GST revenue loss, if albeit it might be impactful in the short term, in the long term, actually the rationalization is always a net beneficial to even the states. Not just because of the boost in consumption, but if one were to look at the rationalizations which have happened in July 2018 and post that in October 2019, one would see in the longer run, because there's a 50% revenue sharing which happens with the center and the states, plus there is a 41% tax devolution which comes to the states. So in the last 5 years, the states actually have been compensated 9.14 lakh crores, which is 63,000 crores more than what was expected and targeted because of this tax devolution, which comes to them. So similarly, in this current structure also, the biggest debate, the flash in the pan point was that whether the states will be compensated enough. But what very nicely, very succinctly put across by the SBI report is that yes, over the longer run, the states will actually be compensated well, and consumption, of course, will be given a huge shot in the arm. So this is quite a historic moment.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that the GST Council functioned in near unanimity with all the states on board with the decisions which have been taken is a signal that the state and the center has been working together. As the finance minister said, it was almost like a team which was at work here. Let me bring in Arshpreet Kardial, who is the national spokesperson of the Congress. Also joining us now is Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson of the BJP. But before I bring in the politicians, I want to understand from you, S.C. Garg, what do you think is the big takeaway from this, this reform? The finance minister says that this will ensure stability and predictability in the GST.
See, there are many pluses. The rate structure has been racialized. So you have now effectively a two rate structure of 5% and 18%. I think that's a big move. There is across the board reduction in the effective GST rates. A lot of goods have moved from 28% to 18%, from 18% to 5%, 12% to 5%, and like that. So there is a widespread reduction of the effective GST rate. So I think that's another plus. Thirdly, I think the reforms will bring or eliminate a lot of classification disputes. Inverted duty structure has been corrected substantially. So I think there is a lot to say positive about what has been effected. I'm not convinced on the side of what the loss, whether you tell it's implication or loss, the whatever name you call it.
Yes, they are terming it as revenue implication, not revenue loss at 48,000 crores.
And Revenue Secretary was right in providing the calculations that if you take 23-24 consumption and apply the new rates, this is the net impact of 48,000 crore. But what will happen now? I think with so much of reduction, definitely in 25-26, there would be loss of revenue to the states and also to the center. How soon, when this would be compensated by the higher consumption? In any case, every year there is a growth in consumption. So that consumption has to be over and above what the normal growth in consumption is. That's a dicey thing. It's very difficult to put an estimate, but it's a reality that there would be loss. Lastly, to my mind, the fact that the compensation issue has been sort of finally decided in the manner it is decided. I think this will bring clarity. Of course, the states will need to be prepared for, in the short run, at least 1 year to 2 years, to be prepared to suffer some losses.
Okay, so you are of the opinion that the states will suffer some losses. Santosh Mehrotra, your thoughts on what will be seen as a simplification or rationalization of the entire GST?
Well, simplification and rationalization hopefully will enhance coverage of the GST, because the total coverage of the GST, my understanding is currently stands at about 14 million enterprises. The fact of the matter is that there are nearly 4 times as many enterprises in the country, and they're not even registered anywhere, forget about being registered in the GST. So only the, the registered small, the registered medium are going to be captured here. And it's a good thing that this rate has been rationalized. Better late than never. It should have never been 5 rates in the first place. In fact, the fact of the matter is that there were 45 rates in place till this morning. I'm glad that this has finally happened. We were never in favor of 5 rates in the first place. We were always, independent economists were always saying that the number of rates should have been much, much less. It's happened very late, so it's good. We know that the short-term losses will be there, but one hopes that over time the losses will be recompensed because the coverage will increase. Because let's just keep this in mind, Maria, that over the 8 years that the GSTB has been in place, as a proportion of GDP, the contribution of GST relative to when we began before on the 30th of June 2017, the day before GST was implemented, we have just come to that level of contribution. In other words, as a proportion of GDP. We will keep hearing that, oh, the overall size of contribution of GST has been increasing, it's been increasing every month, and yada, yada, yada. The fact of the matter is, as a proportion of GDP, it was falling, it has only just reached that level. So the point is that we need to increase coverage. The tax to GDP ratio of the government needs to increase, because government expenditure is not increasing. Just because you're spending on infrastructure doesn't mean you're spending on health, doesn't mean you're spending on education, So there are really expenditures, you are cutting expenditure on ICDS. The fact of the matter is that you've cut corporate tax rate, you've now cut personal income tax rate, now you've cut GST. So where is the revenue going to come from? So, clearly, the government needs to think about how to rationalize expenditure as well.